15 years ago, a much younger but equally dashing version of myself was in this exact same building as a BMW technician doing my training on the F017 series, which just shows how long ago that was. Today though, I've returned for a completely different but not unrelated car, but more importantly it shows just how far BMW has advanced in the ensuing years.
Chasing cars, honest reviews of your next car. Brought to you by
Budget Direct.
This is the all-new BMW G60 5 Series, and BMW has brought out one and only example way ahead of its local launch in the fourth quarter of 2023, so I can have a good little look round. When it arrives late in 2023, the new 5 Series range will be comprised of 3 variants. The very familiar BMW 520i, which has been around for decades, that will be available with a mild hybrid 48-volt subsystem. But the big news is the 5 Series range now has 2 fully electrified versions. One will be the eDrive 40, a rear-wheel drive entry-level electric version, and the other one will be this. This is the xDrive M60. It's got an M in its name, which means it must be pretty special. This is the car I'm most interested in, and that's exactly why BMW has brought it. So, where to start? There's a lot to take in with this car, and that's because it's actually a lot bigger. Remember me talking about that F017 series 15 years ago? This car is actually bigger. It's almost 100 millimeters longer. It's about 30 centimeters wider and taller than the previous 5 Series. And one feature that really stands out, 20 millimeters longer in the wheelbase, which means there's plenty of room inside. More about that later. Let's have a look at this, in my mind, very handsome snout. LED headlight technology. BMW is actually not doing lasers anymore. LEDs have superseded, they're far superior to laser technology now, and that's what we have here. They have matrix LED technology in there for that clever tracking and putting the blind spot on other road users. Then there is that amazing grille. Have you ever seen a cooler feature on a car? BMW is calling that the iconic glow. It's also on the BMW i7, and I, for one, absolutely love it. It is ADR compliant. We are going to be allowed that feature in Australia. I should point out that this is a pre-production version, so not everything we're seeing will necessarily carry over to Australian versions. Aerodynamics, obviously a big thing with this car. It is electric, it has to reduce drag as much as possible, and you can see from that front end it is extremely slippery. The other thing I particularly like is a black grille. Now this car is spec'd up in M Performance, which means it gets a few enhancements which we'll talk through as we go. Huge front end, but also very low drag. It's rolling on 20-inch wheels. Now in this particular top spec M60 version, you can option for no cost a 21-inch wheel, but I'm told if you do that, you get wonderful aesthetics, but you will compromise a little bit in range and efficiency as the drag increases. M badges. This car is not just wearing those for show, it has the performance to match, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Virtually everything about this car has taken into consideration drag and increasing efficiency. The door mirrors, as part of the M Performance pack, have that single blade, but they're also very, very low drag. And so the door handles flush fit, but they're the conventional in operation. And all the way back here, I talk about how this car has a little bit of history to it. We've of course got the Hofmeister kink, but on this particular car, it's attached to the C-pillar, not on the door itself. When you get to the tail end of the i5, there's more to take in. Lovely LED accents in these completely redesigned taillights. I love the frosted sort of titanium look M60 badge. That lets people behind you know that you're not going to be seeing this car for very long. It is very quick. And the boot. Power opening, as you might expect from a car of this prestige, and that reveals a 480-litre boot. Lots of storage underneath there for your cables. No storage for a full size or space saver spare. There is the, in my mind, dreaded repair kit. Love or hate, I'll let you decide. But the real interesting thing about the tail end of this car is actually not here, it's underneath. Now, the underside of the i5 is almost completely flat. That's helped by the battery, which is shaped to make a nice low drag underside. It's flat until you get to about the rear axle, and then what happens is there's a proper diffuser. How many cars have you seen with a fake diffuser on the back? It's there for show. The BMW actually channels air through the rear suspension and into a different pressure zone at the back, and that increases stability at high speeds. More clever aerodynamics. Under the M60's bonnet is not a lot, just a really, really big flat plastic trim. But it's what's underneath that that's really important. This car, as it's the M60 xDrive, has 2 electric motors, one on the front axle, one on the rear, for all-wheel drive. Combined, they produce 422 kilowatts and 820 newton meters, and they get their electricity from an 84 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery. All that power and performance means this car will get from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 3.8 seconds. So as I say, it deserves that M badge, and we're talking M5 performance of previous generations. When you get in the back of the i5, you really feel those extra 20 millimeters of wheelbase. Doesn't sound like a lot, but actually it translates to a very, very airy cabin in the second row. This is what 7 Series used to brag years ago. Now it's trickled down to the 5 Series. I've got loads of space. It's light and airy, but also sort of cozy with that sporty black leather interior. Speaking of the leather, this is Merino leather. It's an option. This car would normally come with a vegan interior, and there's a material that BMW likes to call veganza, which, I mean, I don't know what it means, but I just like saying veganza. Tons of toe room. I've got lovely ambient lighting down there in my footwell. Heaps of knee room. I'm 6'2", and these seats are set to a comfortable position for me in the front. Elbow room's excellent. Headroom is also good, despite the sort of elegant profile on the outside. And when I'm back here, I can enjoy that lovely big panoramic sunroof. It doesn't open, but with a roof like that big and airy, you don't really need it to, I don't feel. And you've also got air conditioning for all the ventilation you could want. I really like, this is a solid state touch screen digital air conditioning panel back here. I've got heated seats, I've got my own fan speed controller, really nice touch. Also, for keeping your rear passengers happy, I've got a USB-C charging socket here, a pair in the middle and another one for my co-passenger in the back. And there's no monitors a la 7 Series back here, but what you do get is a little socket to plug in a special holder, so you can keep people almost as happy. If you're worried about the prying eyes of the public, I've got sunshades on the windows and also on the rear pane as well. BMW is going to lengths to say that this car has a lot of 7 Series appeal about it, and in the second row, I certainly agree. But let's see if it's the same in the front row. It is. Up front, there is a huge amount to take in, but let's start with the fit and finish and the materials. BMW points out this car is a pre-production version, which is kind of like making excuses, but it absolutely doesn't need to, because this car is beautifully put together. The materials feel gorgeous. I can't find any nasty plastics anywhere. And anywhere it's not this lovely leather or leather-like materials, I've got carbon fibre, standard with the M Performance pack. I've got these wonderful laser-cut stainless speaker covers over the Bowers and Wilkins stereo system. That's 17 speakers in this car, and that's not even the top-of-the-range stereo system. This car is so well decked out with equipment. I've got this lovely ambient light interactive bar, which you also get in the BMW 7 Series. That's come down to the 5 Series, and it looks fantastic. You can change the colours. It changes colours depending on what moods the car is in or what functions you're using on the new touchscreen. Other lovely features, I've got to point this out. You've got wireless device charging down here. That's not particularly unusual to many cars these days, but what is unusual is BMW has incorporated this clever cooling fan. Now, how many times have you put your phone down on wireless charging and it feels like magma, feels like it's going to burst into spontaneous combustion? Not in here, because it's got a clever little cooling fan, like we've seen in other BMW models. I've got this Swarovski crystal control wheel and gear selector and stop-start button. Some people think it's a bit kitsch and a bit over the top and garish. I, for the record, absolutely love it. It balances out this cabin really nicely. I've got the sort of facets of these crystal pieces on the dash, and then the cool sort of dark sporty feel of a black leather cabin. I think for me it works really, really nicely. The seats I'm on are an optional comfort seat. You can have the standard sports seats in here. For me, they feel absolutely wonderful. More of that lovely merino leather. Love the carbon fibre. These touch sensitive fan speed switches here. Solid state, but work really, really beautifully. And if you want to adjust the air vents, there's the control here, but they're cleverly hidden just above this carbon fibre strip. So the overall minimalist feel of this cabin is really well executed. Technologically speaking, there is a lot to talk about in here as well, starting with those screens. They appear to be one single piece, but they're actually two separate digital displays. The driver's instrument cluster, 12.3 inches, and then next to it is the main touchscreen, 13.9. Absolutely vast. The resolution is crystal, like suspiciously good, and they're complemented by an equally vast head-up display with, again, beautifully sharp resolution and excellent graphics. The big news with this system is it now houses the very latest version of BMW's operating system, 8.5. The 7 Series is still on 8, so this is as good as it gets, and honestly, it's never worked better. I'm going to fire up the i5 now, and you'll hear its lovely little welcome sound. I mean, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, a little bit reminiscent maybe. Visually, it's changed a little from version 8.0. There's been a bit of a readjustment of where the icons go, but the good news is generally the result is much more intuitive. This car also has BMW's gesture control, which means I can adjust the stereo volume with various gestures, and if my particular favourite, someone calls and I don't want to speak to them, you can just sweep them away to refuse the call. But back to the new icons in the system here. This is a pre-production version, so it doesn't have the navigation functioning, but I do have augmented navigation on my digital display here, which is a lovely feature. And then just the layout is way more intuitive. I've got all the tiles that are laid out logically, all the most important features at my fingertips. Then the hot buttons here all make perfect sense, how to get to the bits you need quickly and efficiently. Speaking of which, one of my bugbears is not being able to find a heated seat switch or a fan speed switch quickly enough. This has got them permanently on the screen here. If you want more options, you just click into it. This is a really, really nice evolution of BMW's operating system. I think it really set the benchmark with iDrive all the years ago, which you still have the controls here, reminiscent of that original system, but this has just evolved into something that really makes perfect sense. There are some other really, really nice features in here too. There's a Happy Kids function, which if you hit that, it turns off all of the stereo speakers in the back and makes it a more ambient place for the kids to be and for them to relax and maybe have a sleep. Give me some peace and quiet up here. I've also got fully electric seats, as you'd expect from a car with a massive battery underneath it, and more lovely ambient lighting. Even though this car is cutting edge and very, very advanced, there's still those little nods to BMW's history, which I really like. As to what this car drives like, we're in a room, I'm not allowed out through that door, we're not allowed to drive this car. It is very precious, first one in the country. We're not going to be able to get a sample until the fourth quarter of this year, 2023. But I have had a little sneaky insight. See, I drove the BMW iX M60 over in Germany a little while ago, and that car is mechanically very similar to this. So I can tell you, if this car drives anything like the iX M60, it is extremely fast, very comfortable. The ride comfort was hugely impressive, and this car of course has the lower centre of gravity of a more traditional sedan. So I'm expecting the combination of its air suspension on the back, M Sport suspension, it's got M Sport brakes to make this car an altogether more dynamic package. Once again, I just feel like that M badge is very well deserved. As to range, 516 kilometers, depending on how you drive, but this car has a feature where you can do max range, and that will turn off some of the comfort features and maximize battery range and the efficiency. BMW hasn't actually released any claimed efficiency figures for this car, so we don't know how efficiently it's using that battery power, but in terms of charging, BMW claims from 10 to 80% in about 30 minutes on the highest power charging. If you're out and about in this car and you need a top up, you get 5 years of free Charge Fox charging for public chargers, which is a really great feature, especially if people still have a bit of that range anxiety. So I suppose you're thinking, in a car with this performance, this much quality, this many features, and all those advanced touches, just how much are you going to be expected to pay for it? BMW has not yet released pricing for the i5 M60, but perhaps we can extrapolate the figures from a very mechanical similar car and also similar specification, the iX M60, which cost $222,900. So my guess would be this car will come in late this year at just under $200,000. Has BMW got the new 5 Series range right? There's no diesel, there's 2 electrics and only 1 petrol. Is it introducing electrics at the wrong time in Australia? Is the range split correct? Let us know in the comments below, and if you've liked this video, hit subscribe and give us a like. Thanks for watching Chasing Cars.